All right. So, we are making it through our summer Bible study series. So we talked about how to study a character. Okay, we did the story of Abraham this summer. We did a theme study, a thematic study, which was the parables of Jesus, which was, I really enjoyed that part. And now we're going to go on to a book study. Okay, and our whole goal this summer was to look at different ways to study the Bible, because all of us need to be people of Scripture. We all need to be reading in our Bibles. But one of the most common things that people share with me is that I'm not sure how to read, or I don't know how to approach this part of the Bible. I'm not sure where to start. So our whole goal was to give tips and tricks throughout this summer Bible study series. And part of our series, when we did our character study, we looked at two things. We said every time we read a character, we need to understand the historical setting and the spiritual, the theory of the historical part and the spiritual part of it. All right, and that helps us get the most out of it. And then during our theme study of the parables, when we do a theme study, we need to ask, what is our specific question in studying this theme? Okay? And because themes will take us across many books of the Bible and in different places in the Bible, our next question has to be, when I look at this verse, how do I put it into context? Okay, gaining context for the verse. And then the last thing was, how do I apply it personally? And when we looked at the parable study, we asked, well, why did Jesus speak in parables? And it's because he was delivering to us a spiritual truth through a common story that everybody can relate to. And a spiritual truth leads to transformation, okay? None of us change according to relative things, okay? Relative things don't lead to change. Truth can lead to change. Truth can lead to change. So Jesus was giving us and delivering spiritual truths through the parables, okay? But now we're going to study a book. Now when we go to study a book in the Bible, right, we have to understand, well, what type of book am I studying? For example, am I looking at a book of history, a book of poetry, wisdom, or prophetic book? Okay? And that's just in the Old Testament. Now if I'm in the New Testament, am I looking at a gospel, the historical book of Acts, okay, the epistles, and if I'm looking at an epistle, am I looking at a Pauline epistle or a Catholic epistle? Alright, so we ask these questions because it helps us understand, because each book also has a literary style. Alright? And when you pick up on the literary style, you will be able to gain more, because you probably read verses in the Old Testament where you read 3 verses in a row, and you're like, are they all saying the same thing? Or not? I don't know what to make of it. That's probably a literary style of the book that is just kind of saying one thing like destruction is coming, then talk about how the destruction will come, and then destruction is coming again, right? So that's something that we can see. So understanding the book and the literary style is important, especially books of poetry have their own literary style. Historical context, always important for the books, right? First big question, am I in the New Testament? Am I in the Old Testament? Right? That's the easy one. But when was the book written? Who was the author? And what was going on? What was the big picture? So all these big questions help us get the most out of the book. All right? Then a nice little cheat, okay, not a cheat, but a guide, is really having an outline for the book. And anybody have the Orthodox Study Bible at home? All right, so at the beginning of each book, there's a really nice outline of the book, right, which tells you this chapter is going to talk about this, these chapters are going to talk about this theme. So familiarizing yourself with that outline or a similar outline, again, when you go to read it, is going to make more sense. All right, so an outline or a commentary are big benefits, and with the Orthodox Study Bible by itself, it's got a lot of commentaries at the bottom to help you understand. There's also plenty of good commentaries out there. One that I personally like to use is the New American Commentary. I go to that one quite frequently, and then other one is the Church Fathers, which certain Church Fathers have covered certain books in the Bible. All right, and it's good to refer to them. So that's kind of tips about studying a book. All right. Now, told you the book that we're going to study is Habakkuk, and Many of you are like, why are we studying Habakkuk? Okay? The why is not why are we studying Habakkuk. You'll see why we're going to study Habakkuk shortly. Okay? But Habakkuk is a really, really cool book. All right? Because I think Habakkuk touches on a lot of the big questions that we have floating around in our minds that just don't quite surface, except when something bad happens. Okay? So Habakkuk really dabbles in those questions. All right, but before we get into Habakkuk, we got to set up our historical setting of Habakkuk. All right? Now Habakkuk, everyone want to guess what type of book? Old Testament, New Testament? Old Testament. Okay? What sort of, Habakkuk is what book? He's a prophet. How do we divide the prophets? Major and minor prophets. What decides whether you're a major prophet or a minor prophet? Huh? How big the book is, right? Exactly. Pretty much if you're like 5 and below, you're a minor prophet. If you're on the 55 end, you're major, right? Because that's going to major undertaking to read the major prophet. So Habakkuk is one of our minor prophets because it's only 3 chapters and it fits nicely into our 3-week series here. All right, but when we talk about the minor prophets, we have to get a picture of what's going on historically. All right, so when we go back to the Old Testament, all right, in the book of 1 Samuel, what we have is the beginning of the kingdom. Okay, the beginning of the kingdom happened with, who was the first king? Saul. Okay, good king, bad king? Good, bad. Okay, we say that a lot in Kings. Like they start off good and then they go bad. All right, so Saul started off okay, went bad pretty quick. All right, then who's next? Huh? David. Okay, the best king. Okay, that we have historically. And then who was next? Solomon. And how do we look at Solomon? Yeah, Solomon was good and got questionable over time. Though the wisest king, tells us something about wisdom, okay? But, so Solomon, and then what happened after Solomon? We have the division of the kingdoms, okay? And then the division of the kingdoms, they were divided into 2 kingdoms. Okay, and what were the names? Okay, Israel and Judah, also referred to as, there's the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, okay? Which one was the northern kingdom? Well, between Israel and Judah, which one was referred to as the northern? Israel. So whenever you read the northern kingdom, it's also talking about the kingdom of Israel, okay? And then the southern kingdom, which was Judah, okay? Judah, the major city in Judah was Jerusalem. Why was that so significant? That's where the temple was. Okay, that's where the temple was. Northern kingdom had Samaria. Nothing big and significant other than not a great place. Okay? Alright, so the northern kingdom was kind of considered the bad kingdom. And the southern kingdom was considered like the good kingdom. And they were split up by tribes. And there was one specific tribe that ended up in the southern kingdom, which is what's really important for us to be able to identify. Which tribe of the 12 ended up in the southern kingdom? Judah, the tribe of Judah. Why is that significant? Jesus came from the tribe of Judah, okay? And David was of the tribe of Judah. And we knew that from the Davidic covenant that the Savior was going to come from the seed of David, which was of the tribe of Judah, and so on. So that's the southern kingdom is the one that really takes our attention. All right. Now, after the kingdom split, all right, you had 2 kingdoms in parallel for a period of time. All right. Northern kingdom, pretty much just think of bad king, bad king, bad king, bad king. That's the northern kingdom. Okay. Southern kingdom, good, bad, 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 good, bad, 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 good, bad. Okay? So that's kind of what the southern kingdom was historically, but it all just got progressively worse. And all of them were always compared to, like a good king, you might read, was was like his father David, is what you might read, at times if you're going through Kings and Chronicles. You might read that, and that's how they kind of compare. Like, was he like David? All right, David was a standard. So we had the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. All right, now, I bring this up. I hope you guys can see. Probably not. Okay, so let me explain. So this was the second part of 2 pages. Okay, this is what I want to talk about. So this was the northern kingdom, okay? And Hoshea was the last king of the northern kingdom until they were taken over, okay, by the Assyrians. The Assyrians came and destroyed the northern kingdom. Meanwhile, the southern kingdom was still going on, okay? So the temple of Jerusalem had not been destroyed at this time. So this is 722 BC. So we then have Ahaz, the king. I can't read it, so definitely you guys can't read it. Okay, Manasseh, Josiah. Okay, so Josiah was known as one of the good kings. He was one of the youngest kings. And then Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah are the last couple of priests, or of kings of the southern kingdom. And then what we have is King Nebuchadnezzar came and destroyed the temple. Okay, so we mark the end of the southern kingdom by the destruction of the temple, and that's what this arrow is. Okay, and then the exile period happened. Here, they started to come back from exile, but it wasn't until after they came back that they built the temple here. Okay, and between here and here is the 70 years. Okay, so when you hear the 70 years of exile, northern kingdom had already been wiped out. Southern kingdom was going on for a little bit, and then finally they got taken over, temple destroyed, exile, the release started to happen, and then the kingdom, and then the temple was built, and then if you look here, Nehemiah comes around here, and that's when the wall was built. Okay? So we got historical context. All right, let's look at some of the prophets that were going on at this time. All right, so, just so I have them right. So Nahum, okay, was a prophet here. Daniel, the prophet here. Okay, this one is the prophet Jeremiah, who was preaching about the coming destruction of the southern kingdom. All right, and then we have Habakkuk. He's sitting right here, and Ezekiel. Okay, so Ezekiel, one of the major prophets, around the same time as Habakkuk. So we have prophets are overlapping with each other. All right. Sorry, I know it's all small print. Okay, but just to give you another context, so here the book of Habakkuk was written in 605. Okay, this is the prophetic life of Habakkuk. Okay, this is the prophetic career of Jeremiah. All right, so just to give you an idea of what's going on. So Habakkuk comes onto the scene right before the destruction of the southern kingdom. Okay? Sorry, I know that was a lot, but it's going to help us as we dig into Habakkuk. All right? So, the other thing that we want to ask is okay, so who's Habakkuk? All right? Historically, there's really not much. Habakkuk is a prophet. Okay, we really don't know. I know, we're used to, we bring speakers in. Okay, we're like, this speaker has done so many great things, have published so many different articles, and have been in so many different boards, and had so many different degrees. Right? That's how we gauge our speakers. Are they important or are they not? Right? This day, you choose what to attend based on the credentials. All right? I do it too. But all of a sudden, we get to Habakkuk. He made it to the Bible, and what do we know about him? Not much. Not much. Which tells us something about Habakkuk, which is the message was more important than the messenger. Okay? The message is more important than the messenger. Too frequently we confuse the messenger and the message. We think that the messenger is what we should aim for. I want a good messenger. But really what matters is the message. Okay? We don't know anything about Habakkuk. But the message that Habakkuk delivered to us, that's what matters. Okay? That's what matters. Right? So, how do we start off Habakkuk? 1:1, the burden which the prophet Habakkuk saw. Okay? During liturgy was enough. All right. So, when you see the word burden, sometimes, depending on the version, you might see oracle or prophecy. Okay? But the key point here is that the message that he is giving to us is heavy. This is such a heavy message. Okay? And because it's such a heavy message, that's why we're able to say the message matters more than the messenger. Okay, so this was something that was weighing on Habakkuk so heavily. Okay? But the thing that I want to ask is, like, when we have burdens, okay, things that weigh on us heavily, all right, we always, not always, but we kind of have in mind, like, what is the right place to lay our burdens? Okay, where do I go with my burning questions? All right? So I'll give you an example. If you're a parent, you take your kid to the pediatrician, they always ask you, do you have poison control on hand? Okay, just in case your kid opens up and drinks Windex. All right? Do you know poison control? All right? Because when your kid drinks it, that's a burden. All right? When you get a new job, they're like, here, if you got some beef, here's HR. Take your beef to HR. Okay? You got a problem in your county, you call the local representative. You got warranty issues, you call the helpline. You got health insurance, you better have a good 4 hours of your day open, but you can call customer service. And if you have a question about your driver's license, there is no number that exists for that. Okay? There is no number that exists for that. Don't even call it, just go. All right, take a number and enjoy the DMV. All right. But Habakkuk clearly had a burden. Okay, Habakkuk had a burden. And his burden, verse 2, O Lord, how long shall I cry, and you will not hear? Even cry out to you violence, and you will not save. Habakkuk had a burden. He was saying, like, you sent me here. I'm seeing these things. I don't hear your voice. I'm even crying wolf and saying, like, violence. But there's nothing. He couldn't find an answer to his burden. Okay? He couldn't find, like, what was going on. And just by verse 2, when he's saying, like, violence, like bad things are happening, he's expecting God to come and say, do something about it. Right? So he's crying out violence, and God is not answering. All right? And we've all been in that boat where we look, you watch the news, I watch the news, like, news is depressing. Okay? It's just like violence and unbelievable things and unbelievable, laws are coming out these days, and we're just like, what's going on? What's going on with the world? Okay? And we take these sometimes to prayer, and we're like, okay, I don't see much changing. All right? Habakkuk cried out, he shouted out, and he heard nothing and saw nothing that would indicate that there was change on the way. So when you kind of cry out and you call out and you're heavy and you get nothing, the natural thing to do is to ask a question. Okay? And Habakkuk had a question. Why? Okay? Why? Let's look at his question. Why do you show me iniquity and cause me to see trouble? For plundering and violence are before me. There is strife and contentions arise. There is the law, therefore the law is powerless, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, therefore perverse judgment proceeds. Habakkuk is looking at the southern kingdom, the kingdom of Judah, and he's making some observations. He's saying, people are plundering, and violence is happening on the streets. Okay? There's fights between different parties and people. All right? That there's so much corruption that laws never make its way down to the people. So these problems just continue to get worse and worse. And what it looks like is that the wicked up high are surrounding all the good people. The people are really struggling to make it. And the little guys just lose all the time. Righteousness loses. Judgment never goes out. The wicked surround the righteous. Like, what he's looking at is the crumbling down of a kingdom. He's looking at the crumbling down of the kingdom. And so he's asking, like, why do you show me this? Why do I see this? Okay? Well, there's about 26 centuries that separate us and Habakkuk. I think there's a lot more similarities that we can appreciate between Habakkuk and us. That we can look out into this world and we see such injustices, we see such violence going on, and we look and we pray, and we're like, I don't see change. Sure, a new nonprofit just showed up, and they're going to do some good things. But overall, the trajectory is really bad. We have these questions. They float around in our mind. And they do make us question God. Right? But when you look at a prophet, okay, a prophet sees something from a different angle that others don't see. If they don't have a unique perspective on what's going on, then nothing really differentiates them from being a prophet. Okay? So Habakkuk is looking. And probably because the kingdom has forgotten God so much, they don't have the same perspective that Habakkuk sees. So Habakkuk, as a prophet of God, looks and sees like a country and a nation and a people devoid of God, knows that God has sent them to look and see what's going on. His perspective on things is worse. Like, if you have a greater appreciation of God and you see the people of God falling apart, you appreciate it, your perspective is different. So Habakkuk has a big burden on his heart. And similar to us, as Christians, we look and we see certain things. And we probably see them in a different perspective, in a different light than other people. Okay? We see the world getting worse and worse. Okay? We know Christ is loving and merciful. All right? I participate as best as I can to bringing love and mercy and justice in my respective arena in life. But man, it's just getting worse. I don't see an end. I'm trying to be kind. I'm trying to smile. I'm trying to fast when all the holiday cookies come around. Okay, I'm trying to do all these things, God. I try not to honk at everybody who cuts me off. Like, we're doing all these things. But at the same time, we're like, why? Why do I do these things? Because what I see, it's all getting worse. Fair question by Habakkuk? Anybody have similar questions? But now let's look. If you were to expect the Lord to respond, how would you expect the Lord to respond to his own prophet? It's okay, Habakkuk. Don't worry. I'm coming. It's going to be all right. Right? That's kind of the expectation I would have of the Lord if he sent me on a mission. Let me see all these bad things. I came, I cried out violence. I would expect, don't worry, reassurance. All right? Let's see what the response of the Lord was. Look among the nations and watch. Be utterly astounded. For I will work a work in your days which you would not believe, though it were told to you. All right. God is just warming up. All right. This is a shocking way to start. Okay, this is a shocking way to start. But let's continue on. Oh, I blew that one. All right. Anyway, so I need to do it on the next one. Next verses, okay? And then the picture should have showed up. That's all right. Okay? Verses 6 and 7. For indeed I am raising up the Chaldeans, a bitter and nasty nation, which marches through the breadth of the earth, to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity proceed from themselves. There we go. All right. Have you received this from God? This is my reaction. Like, you're going to do what? You're bringing a nasty nation to defeat a nasty nation? Like, I don't see the mercy. I don't see the judgment. I don't see the justice in this. Okay? It's kind of a shocking answer. It's kind of a shocking answer. But I think what's even more shocking, and this is where I want to spend a lot of our time, okay, is when you read these verses, okay? For indeed, I am raising up the Chaldeans, a bitter and nasty nation, which marches through the breadth of the earth to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity proceed from themselves. Does this verse kind of rub you a little bit wrong? Does something seem off from this verse? If there is, what? Two wrongs don't make a right. Okay.
Is God doing conspiring with these people?
Why is God negotiating with terrorists? Okay. Why is he conspiring? Okay. What other things rub you wrong about this verse? Something doesn't seem right. Okay? Question I had, okay, was, are the Chaldeans his puppet? Like, it sounds like the Chaldeans just seem to be his puppet. Like, you think you're in charge, but ha ha ha, I will make you come and destroy the southern kingdom. Right? Pharaoh, you think you're in charge, but I will harden your heart and force you to go through the 10 plagues. Right? So there's similar verses, okay? We also read in Isaiah 41:2, which says, who raised up one from the east, who in righteousness called him to his feet, who gave the nations before him and made him ruler over kings, who gave them as the dust of the sword is driven to stubble of his bow. Like, pretty much, like, it seems like God is just controlling everything. And in Psalm 46, 8 through 10, it says, come, behold the works of the Lord, who has made desolations in the earth. He makes wars, ceases to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariots in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. It kind of gives you this sense that, like, nobody's really in control. Nobody, like, can decide what's going to happen in the situation. And God is just masterfully bringing everything together. Right? When we think like that, we have to bring in two ideas, okay? Two things to understand this. What's free will versus foreknowledge? Okay, what is free will versus foreknowledge? Because if we go and interpret these verses in the way, like, kind of hits us at the beginning, it's very easy to come and be like, do these countries, do these kings have free will? Or is God just saying, now it's time to go, you go? Or is there foreknowledge? Okay. Free will is one of those things that God will protect at all costs. Okay? God will never impinge on our free will. Because the second you impinge on free will, it is no longer love that drives anything. It is coercion. Okay? Once you take free will out of the picture, love ceases to exist. And if he is a God of love, then we have to approach these verses and say, under all circumstances, free will is preserved. Okay? Free will preserved. Many of you think because I have raised my son up to be a Bears fan in the middle of Baltimore, I've taken free will. No, that's foreknowledge. Okay? All right? I haven't taken away his free will. I've just given him a lot of knowledge. Okay? And know where that knowledge will lead. So free will has to be protected. God will never impinge on that because he does not force us into any sort of relationship with him. So now we have to go into foreknowledge and understand foreknowledge. Who knows what Black Monday is? Okay? A couple people know what Black Monday is. After every football season, the regular season, okay, which ends on Sunday, Black Monday is when they go and fire all the coaches, okay? Fire all the coaches. And many of us are like, I saw it coming, okay? All the announcers and everybody's like, okay, it's the end of the season, who's going to be fired tomorrow? And we can predict with uncanny accuracy which coaches are going to be fired. But have the announcers determined and taken away the free will of the owners to fire a coach or not? No. But in the knowledge that they've gained, they're able to predict this coach is going to be fired, this coach is going to be fired, this coach is really on the hot seat, this coach is going to be fired. Okay? Free will is protected. But there's foreknowledge in what happens. Okay? We have plenty of things that we can predict by ourselves. Okay? I can say to my kid, you want to play video games or take a shower? I know the answer. All right? Do you want to take a bath or are you going to take a shower? I know the answer. It's always going to be a bath. It's always going to be a bubble bath. Okay? I know it. All right? When you send your spouse to the grocery store, okay, you know they're coming back with cookies you didn't put on the list. Okay? At least in my household, that's what always happened. Okay? Cookies that were not on the list always made it back home. Alright? Was my mom surprised? No. Did she put it on the list? No. Did she force him to buy the cookies? No. But she knew him. I liked it. Okay, I don't know what her problem was, but I liked the cookies. Alright? But that's foreknowledge. It's foreknowledge. Okay? We can predict outcomes for people in the workplace. We know like people who have a really good work ethic, solid work ethic, are most likely to move along in their company. We can also say like, you're a slacker and you cut corners and different things, and it's a matter of time before it catches up with you. Have we taken away their free will? No. But with our foreknowledge, we can understand what's going to happen. Okay? We know like a selfish person, okay, who is very cavalier with their money, is going to make certain purchases. Right? Governments like function on the foreknowledge that they have of other countries and what move they're going to make. They spend so much time in gathering up knowledge in order to predict what other countries are going to do. Okay? How if I do this or show this, that this country is going to move here and they're going to play this, card. Like, it happens on a big scale. Has one country impinged on the free will of another country? No. But have they gained so much information and experience and history with a certain individual or a certain entity to be able to predict with pretty good accuracy what another country will do? Yes. All while preserving free will. So when it comes to us and God, let's look at Psalm 139, 1 through 3. O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thoughts afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. We are talking about the most intimate knowledge possible of an individual by God. To the point that with all this knowledge, he comprehends our paths. He knows which way we're going to go. But he won't take away our free will. That's off the table. But when he knows us so intimately, and he can see the path that we're on, that's foreknowledge. When you think of him as a creator of the world and all the nations, and all the individual rulers in the nations, in all the structures. There's such deep foreknowledge that there's no need for the free will. Like, he knows what's going to happen. He can predict it. He sees it unfolding. All right? Is that clear? Free will and foreknowledge. Any questions on that one? It's always a tough one, but it's good to visit. But we're still in this mess of Habakkuk. Okay? We're looking at God, we're seeing violence, and we're like, your mercy and your just. Like, why do I see this? Okay? How do I rectify this? How do I see, like, I don't see your hand moving, and then when I ask you what was going to happen, you're bringing the Chaldeans? Great. All right? What do we do with this? And this is a question that many people have, and this is a question that many people leave God because. Okay? Is how can there be a good, all-loving God when such evil exists? This is a question that's always floating out there, and we're always going to have to revisit it. And Habakkuk was visiting this question, saying, why are you letting me see all this? All right? If we look at James, okay, and this is why this question is so hard, because in James, he depicts something really nice. He says, if a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, depart in peace, go and be warmed and be filled, but you don't give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus also, faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. What St. James is saying is like, if you see a homeless person, and you say, don't worry, Jesus is going to help you, while you have the ability to help, what does that person think? Great. I love Christianity. Great words, but throw me a bone here, like a tangible bone. Give me something real, right? So we tell people, don't worry, it'll all be okay, but don't supplement it with anything. It starts to make us question, okay, what is this sort of faith? And we look at God as being merciful and just and loving, and we're seeing all this violence, and we don't see his hand. The question naturally comes up. Are you as loving as you say you are? Okay? How do I deal with this problem of evil and violence with God? Okay, so we end up with this biblical conundrum. And it goes something like this. We learn biblically, God is absolute goodness. God is all-powerful and great, and evil is real. But we got to make all of these work together. And it's not always easy. All right? So, how do I deal with the existence of evil that seems to be getting worse and worse by the day and by every new ruler that comes into power? Okay? And reconcile it with God is absolute goodness. God is all-powerful. But yet I'm still seeing evil getting worse. What's the most common first thing that people do from the equation? What's the easiest thing to do? I see evil around me. I've tried to pick it out of the equation. I can't. Let me take God out of the equation so I can reconcile what I see. Okay? And when we do this, what do we end up with? Atheism. Okay? When we've taken God out of the equation to reconcile the evilness that we see, what we have is an atheistic world. Okay? We deny the existence of God. But when we deny the existence of God, we by default deny the existence of evil at the same time. And that's what people don't see in the situation. Let me take God out of the picture, okay. But if you're taking God out of the picture, then essentially you've taken evilness out of the picture too. But somebody comes and says, no, but I see evil, I don't see God. So then, how do you know that that's evil? By which backdrop, okay, or which point do you see that that is evil? Right? When you deny the existence of God, you are by default denying evil. Okay, and I want to take you to a quote by C.S. Lewis. And C.S. Lewis, who was an atheist, converted. And this is one of the things that not worked, but the thought that he had in his conversion, because he was looking and trying to deal with the problem of evil. Say, how do I deal with evil? And so it says this: my argument against God was that the universe seemed so cruel and unjust. But how had I got this idea of just and unjust? A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. What was I comparing this universe with when I called it unjust? If the whole show was bad and senseless from A to Z, so to speak, why did I, who was supposed to be part of the show, find myself in such violent reaction against it? Thus, in the very act of trying to prove God did not exist, in other words, that the whole of reality was senseless, I found I was forced to assume one part of reality, namely my idea of justice, was a full sense. Consequently, atheism turns out to be too simple. If the whole universe has no meaning, we should never have found out that it has no meaning. Just as if there was no light in the universe, therefore no creatures with eyes, we should never know it was dark. Dark would be without meaning. So what C.S. Lewis is saying is that the only way we can call evil evil is because we know what good is. Okay, and we have to have that anchor or that absolute point where we know this is all good, therefore we can say this is all evil. So once you take God out of the picture, you can't say this is evil. Okay? I want to share a quick story that Ravi Zachariah told. He was at a university speaking on this issue, and he brought one of the atheistic students in front of him, and he said, if I have a little child here, and I cut the little child into pieces, how would you feel about what I did? Would you call it evil? And the atheistic student looked at him and he said, while I wouldn't like what you have done, I couldn't call it evil. Because there's nothing to compare it to. Nothing to compare it to. So that's one issue. Okay, that's one solution that people try to bring to the table when we talk about this issue of good and evil. Next one is people try and make evil a part of God. Okay, that it's all under His control, that evil is just an extension of God. Okay, kind of two sides of the same coin. The problem from our perspective, when we look at this, is that who of us here are trying to become united with somebody eternally who always has evilness as a part of the package? If we assume that evilness is just under the control of God, but is a part of Him, why are we trying to assume full communion and union with somebody who has evilness in him? Our whole point of salvation is to retreat from this fallen world and to unite ourselves with the absolute goodness of God. That's salvation in our understanding. To say that evil is a part of God doesn't make sense for us, especially with respect to salvation. All right? The other thing that people try and do is diminish God's greatness and His goodness. Pretty much saying that God is powerful, but maybe He's not powerful enough to deal with evil. All right? Or, God is good, but He's not as good as we think, so He's able to tolerate evil. All right? Those are some of the things. And this quote that is up there is actually from atheisticrepublic.com. So this is one of the things that atheists might say. We must question the story logic of having an all-knowing, all-powerful God who creates faulty humans and then blames them for His own mistakes. All right? So it's really just calling into question like His goodness and His power and His all-knowing, questioning those characteristics of God. All right? if we question his all-powerful and being all-powerful and all-good, we put a crack in our understanding of salvation. Then we wonder, like, could he have actually conquered death for us? Which was the end product of all the evilness and the sin that is up to them. Okay. So those are common things that people will use, or arguments. So not all, it's not comprehensive, but I want to share a couple when we deal with this issue of good and evil, all right? But we need to live in the tension, and I'm going to wrap it up in the next couple of minutes. All right? We need to live in the tension of this question because it is not a very easy question to answer. And while we'd always like to have one silver bullet that I can use this answer and it solves everything, we can't. So we have to approach this issue of dealing with good and evil multifaceted. Okay? So I'm going to provide a couple of facets to look at this question through. Okay? Jesus predicted the evil that we would face. He knew of it. He said, "These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulations, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world." So not only does he reassure us, but he had predicted. He knew that this was going to happen. He saw the evil that was going to enter in as a result of sin. And he said, "I've overcome." So we are reassured in his goodness and his power. All right? God didn't cause the evil into the world. Okay? He didn't bring it into the world. And we have to go back to Genesis. And in Genesis, where it says, "But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die." Okay? And we made a point of this in the Incarnation series as well as our Salvation series. What God did not say is, "I will kill you," or "I will punish you." But he says, "You will die." Like, you eat, you chose disobedience of your own free will, there's a consequence to that. It's a natural part of the decisions that you make. Sin enters into the world, and sin's end game is death. He didn't cause it. Okay? But again, in order to protect free will, he had to give that choice to Adam and Eve to make. So he didn't cause it. Now, while we look and say, like, okay, why is God allowing all this evilness to happen? Here's an interesting stat.